Hello everyone, welcome to Tutorials by Decade. My name is Decade, and today we are going to fix an issue while also creating what is called a state machine. So the issue, once it starts playing here, is that I can spam the attack button, and as you can see, the sword just kind of freaks out there, and the player constantly does the animation, and it doesn't stop or anything, which will make hitboxes, which we're going to be covering later, kind of a pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a state machine, and that is going to fix that issue, as well as preparing us for a few future things that we're going to be doing. So if you don't already have it open, we're going to open your player script, and we are going to be changing some things in here. So well, first, I don't know why my player script opened up on my other monitor, but it's not going to let me do anything until it's done doing whatever it's doing there. There we go. So there's the player script. Give me 1 second here to pull up my notes on my other screen. All right. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go all the way to the top of your script, and before the public class is declared, but under all the using statements, we are going to create a public enum player state. And in here, we're going to put all the different states that our player is going to be in or potentially be in. So we're going to do idle, walking, running, attacking, stunned, interacting, and paused. Okay, so once we have those states in there, what we can do now is create in the variables here two things. First, a private bull is stunned and false. And then we're also going to create a serialized field, private player state current state. So what a state machine is exactly what it sounds like. Your player can be in different states, and while in different states, certain things can happen and certain things can't happen. So we're gonna again set this up for the future, but we're also going to set it up for right now. So when the player attacks, it'll go into an attacking state, which means the player will not be able to move, nor will the player be able to continuously attack until the attack animation and everything is done. And then the player will be able to move again and or attack again. This will add a little bit of a challenge for the player, so they can't just spam attack and kill something without getting hit. This will also allow it so that way you can do other things in the future. So as you can see up here, all the different states we plan on doing, like interacting, if you're interacting with a sign or a chest or a NPC or anything like that. Stunned, whenever we get enemies and everything, you can stun the player so they won't be able to attack or anything right away. We're going to be adding running, a pause state, and then you can also add whatever other states you want in this. Like it's not permanent until you make it permanent. So like if we don't use the pause state, we can just take that out. Or if we decide we want to add a different state in here, we can always do that. Just remember though, if you add a state in here, you're going to have to use it at some point in your code. So for the player state, what we're going to do is for the current state, for start, we're just going to do current state equals player state dot idle. So what that's saying is when everything starts, your player is just going to automatically be an idle, which normally would be anyway, since idle's the first one on the list here. But nonetheless, you want to do this just in case. All right. Now we are going to be changing the update here in just a moment. But for right now, we're going to skip that, and we're going to create a new function right here. Private void switch player states, and we're going to do a switch statement. So what a switch statement is exactly what it sounds. It's going to switch something. You have a bunch of different cases, and those cases will tell other code what to do, what not to do. Again, like ideally you want to know a little bit more about programming before you dive into this stuff. But I promise you this is going to work when it comes to switching states. You're going to see a lot of red lines here in a minute. We are going to fix all of that. So if you're following along and you're getting all those red lines too, it's normal. We will be fixing all of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a switch statement. So switch and then current state. And then underneath that, we are going to make our first case, which is case player state dot idle. And then we're going to do a colon instead of semicolon. And then we're going to do handle idle state and then break. So that is our first case. And again, you're going to see that little red squiggly line. We are going to be fixing that here soon. And we're essentially going to do this. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We're essentially going to do this for each state that we've created. And if we do add any states in the future, we're going to have to remember to do this. But create another case, player state walking, and handle walking state, and then break. And then case, player state running, handle running state, break. Again, we're going to do this for each case. So there's attacking. They're stunned. There is interacting, and then lastly, so that is all that we're going to be doing right here. And again, you see all these red squiggly lines. They are going to go away as we change a few things. So up here in update, what we're going to do now is we're going to get rid of these two, and we are going to add switch player states, and that's all we're going to do. So in the update, it's going to run this constantly, and whenever we switch states, it's going to handle whatever state that we're in, which we're going to create those in a minute. The one other thing that we need to do is create a change state. A change state function here. And that'll make life a little bit easier for us going forward. And all we have to do here is current state equals new state. So essentially what this is every time we call change state, it's going to ask for the new state, and then it's automatically going to run this for us. Realistically speaking, it's not necessary, but for me, it makes life a little bit easier. If you want to continuously write out, like we did up here in the start method, current state equals player state.idle, you can do that. That's essentially all that we're doing with this anyway, but I just think it looks a little cleaner if we do it this way. So now that we've done that, we're going to create functions for each and every one of these. Now, some of these we don't have any of the logic for yet, so we're just going to put notes in there, which I'll show you how to do that. But let's go in order and create the idle state. So down here we go private void handle idle state. And just doing that by itself will automatically get rid of that little red line up here. And what we're going to do is, here is where we're going to set the animator dot set bowl is moving to false. So just like how we did down here, we are going to be doing the same right here. So as a matter of fact, we can actually get rid of that else statement, as that is now going to be handled by the handle idle state. Now there's a few things that we're going to want to do in the handle idle state, and this is essentially going to be changing the state from idle. So the first thing we're going to do is if current state does not equal player state attacking, or current state does not equal player state dot interacting, or current state does not equal player state paused. So even though we're going to be in the handled idle state here, we still want to make sure that we're not in any other state by accident before we do this, or else, like, if you're paused and you forget to put it in the pause state, you know, you'll be able to move the player around and stuff from the pause menu. So this is just like an extra check. But if input.get access raw horizontal does not equal 0, or if input.get access raw vertical does not equal 0. So in other words, if we're moving at least in one direction, then we are going to change state player state walking. Did I not? Oh, capital W. There we go. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to change to the walking state if there's any movement detected by the player, as long as we're not already in attacking, interacting, or pause states. And then if input.get button down is attack, then we're going to change the state to player state dot attacking. And for now, that's all we need to do in handle idle state. We could do some other things from here, but we're not going to get into that just yet. Like, for instance, we can add like animations if you're idle too long. If you've ever played games like Sonic comes to mind. You know, if you're playing Sonic the Hedgehog and you sit there for a few seconds and don't move, he starts tapping his foot and like pretending like he's looking at his watch and stuff like that. You'd be able to do that from this state. Again, we're not going to get into that right now, and I don't even think I have animations for that. But again, it is something that you could do. So now that we have that, we are going to move on to the next state. So private void handle walking state. So again, now that that's done, the handle walking state up here is going to go away. So what we're going to do is, since we're going to add a stun feature later, we're just kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But if not is stunned, then we're going to handle movement and animation. So everything that we've done down here in handle movement and animation is going to stay the same. The only thing we did was remove that else statement for switching the animation to idle. So that's going to be handled in the idle state. So what we're saying here again is if we're not stunned, which we're not, we don't have any, stunned logic or anything yet. So we're just, again, getting ahead of ourselves. But if not stunned, we're going to be able to move. While in this state, if movement change equals vector 3.0, then we're going to change state player state dot idle. So essentially all we're saying here is we're checking to see if the player stopped moving. And if the player did stop moving, then we're going to go into the idle state. And from the walking state, we will be able to attack. So if input dot get button down, attack is pressed, then we're going to change state to player state dot attacking. And once again, as you can start to see, anytime we change our states and we're handling a state, you can do different things within that state. So from the idle state, we can go to moving or walking state, or we can go to attacking. Again, once we add pause, stunned, and all that other stuff in here, we can add stuff here or add stuff to here. But as you see, well, as you'll see when we're in attacking state here, which we're not going to do next, first we're going to do private void handle running state. And all we're going to do here is just put ourselves a little note. So 2 backslashes and do running things here. So this is a good way, if I haven't gone over this before, to add notes to your code. Honestly, right now my mind is drawing a blank of what it's actually called, but essentially you can add stuff, the code will skip it. So anything after the 2 slashes on just this line, the code will skip it, meaning you can put a note here for either yourself for the future or anyone on your team, like, oh, this needs to happen here or that needs to happen here. The other thing you can do is backslash star, and then anything after that will become a note until you do the star backslash. So you can have multiple lines. We obviously don't want that. So we'll just do the 2 slashes, and there we go. But even just doing this, it gets rid of the little warning for running state. But as I was saying before I got distracted, if we go to like the attack state, which is what we're going to do now, you'll notice that in the attack state, all we're going to do is start the coroutine that we were starting earlier. And it's going to be the attacking co. So what's going to happen now is anytime that we go into the attack state by pushing the button attack, the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to start the coroutine, which means the player won't be able to move. The player won't be able to run. The player won't be in idle. The player will just be in attacking state until the end of the coroutine, which we're going to, while we're here, we might as well change that now. So the coroutine essentially is going to stay the same. All we're going to do is at the end, we're going to add an if statement, and we're going to do movement change not equals vector 3.0. So in other words, if the player's holding down one of the movement keys, then we're going to change state to player state dot walking. Else if movement change is vector 3.0, in other words, the player is not moving, then we're going to change state to player state dot idle. So that's all we need to do for the coroutine, is just add this if and else if statement. So that way when the coroutine is done running, you'll either switch to one of these two states. But while you're in the attack state, nothing else will happen. So you can see how having all these different states can be a powerful tool, because then you can control what can happen and can't happen depending on what state the player or enemies or an item is in, because we're going to be doing one of these state machines for at least our enemies, and then we'll go from there as to what else we do. So we got to finish it off here, and private void handle stun state. So here we're just gonna do stun things here, but we're also might as well add that is stunned equals true. We'll end up having like a coroutine or something that will take care of the stun state. So we're not even really calling stun state at any given point in time right now, so it doesn't really matter that much, at least at the moment. Private void handle interacting state, and then do interacting things here, and should be lastly the private void handle pause state, and do paused things here. All right. So that should have gotten rid of all of the errors that we have up here, which it did. It now also means that our, where is it? Our handle attack and animation function is now no longer necessary, so we can delete that. Let me just double check to make sure that we did everything we needed to do, which I believe we did. Yeah, it looks like that we did. So make sure that you've added these two variables. Make sure you've added all your states up here in the enum. And then make sure that your update is switch player states. We're going to keep this right now just for testing purposes, but eventually we're going to get rid of this because it's all going to be handled differently in code. But yeah, as long as you followed along with all of that, this should work. So we're going to save our player script. We are going to go back into Unity. Let me try that again. We are going to go back into Unity. There we go. And apparently Unity was testing already. I don't know why that was going on, but let's make sure it made those changes. Yeah, there's the current state idle. All right, so let's hit play and see what happens. So I am still able to move around. I am able to attack. And now I can't spam attack. Like, I don't know if you can hear the clicking of my keyboard, but that's as fast as I'm able to attack. Now, obviously, if you want to be able to attack faster or anything like that, we'd have to do a little bit more code. But nonetheless, that's the basics of a state machine. Again, we're now able to not constantly attack. The entire animation finishes out, which is going to be very useful for whenever we do hitboxes, which I do believe is going to be the next video, if I remember correctly. Because I had all this planned out. I just don't have that plan in front of me right now. But hitboxes are how you're actually going to hit things with your sword. So we're going to have like bushes, bottles, and eventually enemies that we can hit with the sword that will do different things. So, yeah, that should be it for this video. I know this is one of the shorter videos I've done. So, hey, if it was helpful and you liked it, make sure you give it a big old thumbs up. Be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And also hit that bell because new videos are like this are going to be coming out all the time. But with that being said, that is all that I have. So as always, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.